Regularly scheduled programs will not be seen tonight so that we may bring you the NFL live and in color.
Travis Coons for the win. And it's blocked. And it's picked up by Will Hill. Will Hill runs down the sideline. Hill's going to get a block. Will Hill is going to win the game on a blocked field goal. Unbelievable. Will Hill thrilled me. What a play. At the buzzer, it's a kick six. And the Ravens find a way to win.
Welcome to Basically a Football Show.
Basically a Football Show, Week 13, rivalry week in college, and Week 12 in the National Football League. Pretty interesting on all fronts for once. I'm Zach, along with me is Greg. And Greg, we're going to start on the NFL this time because I think we had, for the first time in a little while, a very solid and interesting top-to-bottom NFL weekend.
It was definitely interesting. A lot of funny stuff happened, I'll say that.
Things kind of a little bit more straightforward in college this week, so that's why we're pushing it back.
Yeah, rivalry weekend did kind of, I don't want to call it a flop, but it was kind of a flop.
There were good games, but none of the results that...
Nothing really changed that much.
No chaos. Yeah, I think nothing changed, and I think we're pretty much where we were last week, and what we have is what we have. But we'll start with the National Football League and the Thanksgiving traditions of Thursday football. The Lions blew the hell out of the Eagles. Matt Stafford, 5 touchdown passes. The Lions, 4-7.
Is that 3 straight for them now, right?
3 straight for the Lions, and the Eagles, ugh.
That team's done. They're bad, and I've got to think at this point, I mean, there's just no way you keep Chip Kelly at this point, is there?
No, and you got to think with some of the college jobs that are open now, maybe he takes a look around.
He almost has to because this team is so clearly quit on him. It's so obvious in the way they're playing. This experiment, I'm not going to say that maybe it would have worked, but I don't know that this is coaching so much as his personnel decisions or what caused all these problems with the Eagles. But this team has just quit on him, and I just don't think you can keep him around.
No, I don't believe so either. In the second game on Thanksgiving Day, the Panthers. They're a damn good football team.
Yes, they are.
33-14 win over the Cowboys. Tony Romo made his return last week, comes into this week, breaks the same collarbone, and he's out for the rest of the year, and that pretty much ends it all for the Cowboys, any slim hopes they had.
Even if Romo had stayed healthy in this game and everything else stayed the same, I think they were done either way. Coming out of this game at 3-8, I just don't know. You've got to win 5 in a row at that point, and you still got the Packers left on your schedule. I think they were done going into it.
Yeah, but look at the NFC East. 5-7's on top of that division right now.
Yeah, but I still think the Cowboys just had a tough road to hoe no matter what happened, and now it's definitely over with Romo being gone for the season.
Tough one for the Cowboys, but man, these Panthers...
I think they're the best team in the league. I do.
You think they're better than the Patriots?
I absolutely do think they're better than the Patriots. The difference with the Panthers and the Patriots is that the Panthers aren't flashy. They aren't Tom Brady driving down the field and hitting Gronk and all that. They don't have any of that going for them. They just play solid football in every aspect of the game. And they're not – and, of course, they're in Charlotte as opposed to Boston, so, of course, they're not going to get the attention. But I do think that they are better than the New England Patriots. I think they're better defensively, and I think that defense, especially with the Patriots now with the injury problems they have, I think the Panthers are the team to beat for the Super Bowl at this point.
I think Cam Newton's the MVP of the league. Again, Brady's going to be right there with him, but I think – when it comes to a standpoint of what you do for your football team versus what the other guy does for his, yeah, Brady does a lot for the Patriots, and I'm not trying to, demerit Brady at all. He's obviously one of the best of all time, as much as it hurts me to say that. Cam Newton's having his best season ever. I mean, 11-0, the numbers are right there. The Panthers are just good.
This is a good football team. They can run the ball. They can pass when they have to. The defense is very good. I don't know what more you want out of a team. They're not flashy, they're not exciting, but they're 11-0, and I think that says it all.
Rest of the way for the Panthers at the Saints, home against the Falcons, at the Giants, at the Falcons, home against the Bucks.
They can win all those, and they could go undefeated, but I kind of hope they don't. Mm-hmm. Just because you don't want that pressure going into the playoffs. So, and I think the Giants might rise up and knock them off. You never know with this Giants team, but they could go undefeated.
That game for the Giants is going to be big. Either one of those games for the Falcons, if they want to stay in any sort of playoff contention, they have to win one of those. And the Buccaneers, they're fighting for a playoff spot technically too. So,
I just want to know, how many times are we going to hand the NFC East to the Giants and are going to drop it?
Yeah, we'll talk about them in a second because, man, that division's that's a dumb division.
At least at this point now, with the Cowboys, they maybe get a really good draft pick, and that's I think with this team as talented as they are, they get like a couple of good, high early round draft picks. Man, they're gonna be real tough next year.
On to the night game on Thanksgiving Day.
Oh God.
Yeah, we got to talk about it, Greg. In the freezing rain of Lambeau Field, on Brett Favre nights at Lambeau Field, the Chicago Bears go in and pull one out late and defeat the Packers 17-13. The Pack falls to 7-4. The Bears move up to 5-6. They're right on the edge of the playoffs, just like a few teams in the NFC.
I don't get this Packers team at all. They went out and played probably their best game of the year against the Minnesota Vikings last week. You're at home, which is where you're demonstrably better than you are on the road, and you do this. The Bears must have seen something that the Lions did because they shut down the Packers offense in a very similar fashion to the way the Lions did it a couple weeks back. Credit to the Bears. They won the game, and the Packers, I don't know what their deal is at this point. It's
a big loss for the Packers because they give the lead up in the division, again, back to the Vikings. The way the divisions break down in the NFC, you're going to have some really good wild card teams, though. If the Packers are a wild card team, speaking of wild card teams, the Chicago Bears, they win. They're at 5-6. They're a game out of a playoff spot right now. Down the stretch, they have the 49ers. They have Washington, Minnesota. They're at the Buccaneers, who they could beat. And then they play the Lions, who they could beat.
I'm not going to get that carried away. I don't think this Bears team's that good.
At the very least, they could probably get to 500, which would be
I think
for where most people thought they were going to end up.
At 5 wins, I think they've already got one more win than I thought they were going to have all year. So if you're looking at it from that aspect, it's already a victory for them.
It's still going to be tough for them to get in it, but hey, on to Sunday. We'll start with your best-dressed game of the week in a surprise move, Greg. The Raiders get a nice win, 3-point win over the Titans. Raiders are 5-6. They're hanging around. Are the Titans the worst team in the league right now?
The Cleveland Browns are the worst team in the league.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
Who would win in a Browns-Titans game?
I'm taking the Titans by 20.
Didn't the Browns beat the Titans earlier this year?
I don't know. Probably. I don't know. This Browns team is just wow.
Well, trust me. We'll have some laughs at their expense. Moving on down, Bills-Chiefs, a big game when it comes down to the AFC wildcard picture. Both teams came in at 5-5, and the Chiefs get one at home, 30-22. They get the 6-5 record and currently sit in the 5th wildcard position in the AFC.
That's their 5th win in a row, and all of a sudden they went from dead and buried to in the 5th playoff spot. Crazy season it's been this year.
Yeah, they lost 5 in a row. The Chiefs did. They won their opener against the Texans, lost 5 in a row, and now they've won the last 5. When you're 1-5, I think most people just kind of throw you to the wayside and say,
yep.
Well, we thought more of them, but hey, maybe we were wrong. But 6-5 and in the 5th position in the AFC. We'll go with another playoff team. The Indianapolis Colts continue to lead the AFC South, a 25-12 win over the Buccaneers. This wasn't a good football game, but Matt Hasselbeck improves to 4-0 on the season. And the Colts are 6-5, leading the division, tied with the Texans for the division lead. The Buccaneers, they lose a big one. This was going to be key for them to stay in the playoff hunt in the NFC.
I just want to point out the ridiculousness of this football season. Okay?
Yeah.
You've got the Colts with Matt Hasselbeck at 4-0 at quarterback. Mm-hmm. The Buccaneers playing for a playoff spot. Mm-hmm. I don't even know where to begin with all this. It's just insane.
More stats for Hasselbeck, by the way. Andrew Luck is 2-5 on the season with 13 turnovers. Matt Hasselbeck is 4-0 with 3 turnovers.
Yeah, and then throw in the fact that not a month ago I was calling the Houston Texans the worst team in football. But the Colts needed this game. I mean, as ridiculous as it sounds, they needed to stay ahead of the freaking Texans of all teams.
Yeah, I know. It's been all of a sudden it's a tight divisional race,
right?
Let's move on to the Texans real quick and talk about them. The Texans, a 24-6 win over the Saints to move up to 6-5. This Texans defense that was
horrible
through the first few weeks just disappeared. They've come back here, and now Brian Hoyer was healthy, and after T.J. Yates got him a couple wins, Brian Hoyer comes in and wins another game for the Texans. They're 6-5 right there with the Colts, and I don't know where the Texans' rebirth came from, but They're right where we thought they might have been all year.
Defense, I think. You got to give the credit to the defense. But, again, just to point out how nutty this season's been, the Texans, under the tutelage of T.J. Yates and Brian Hoyer, and here they are in first place. Never would have guessed in a million years.
Houston keeps chugging along, and that defense finally shows up. Let's move over back to the NFC, and we'll talk about that. NFC East. The Giants go into Washington and drop one. They were down by 17 for the majority of this game. They made a fourth quarter comeback, but Washington pulls it out late with a field goal to stay ahead of them. 20-14 to tie the NFC East lead at 5-6. Who wants to win the NFC East?
The Giants don't want it because it's been handed to them on a platter about 6 different times this year, and they've just handed it back every single time. If I had to pick a team right now that I like the best out of this division, I'm going with Washington. They're probably not as talented as the Giants, but they seem to care more, and sometimes that makes a difference.
And I think we know what Washington is. You don't know what effort you're going to get from the Giants week in and week out.
Precisely. I think the Redskins, I might as well just say it, I almost did anyway. I like them the best right now in that division. That may change in 2 weeks, but right now, I think Washington's the team to beat in the NFC East, which is just absurd.
I don't know. It's whoever wins the most games in this division will win it.
Really go out on a limb there.
Yeah. It's just one of those things like I don't know who's going to be the best team. I don't know which games are going to be won and which ones are going to be lost.
Okay. I'm going to give you a reason to pick Washington out of the rest. Their home record. They're 5-1 at home. They've got 3 games left at home. That's good enough for me. That's what I'm going to base it on.
Speaking of NFC division leaders, the Vikings go back in front of the NFC North with a 20-10 win over the Falcons. Falcons drop out of a wild card spot with the loss, and a nice game there by your irrational confidence Vikings, and maybe not so irrationally confident, maybe just confident Vikings.
Yeah, I think we might have to take the irrational off these guys at this point. They are 8-3 and in first place in the NFC East or North. Excuse me.
I think at this point you could say they're a playoff team for sure.
Right.
The Packers, they have the talent to turn a switch and eventually get back into these things.
Hey, you know what though? It looks like finally, after 3 years of trying, one of my irrational confidence teams is actually going to come through here for me.
My irrational confidence team fell again as injuries are starting to catch up to them. The Bengals knock off the Rams 31-7.
Cincinnati, when they lost the Monday night or the Thursday night game, it wasn't a Monday night game.
Monday against the Texans.
When they lost that game, all my confidence in them was gone. I just thought, nope, they're the same old team. But then you know what? They came back. They didn't beat the Cardinals, but they played very well against them. They went out and did this against the Rams. So I'm back on board. I think the Bengals are good again.
Yeah, Bengals are fine. They're going to be right up there, probably in. I mean, well, depends on how Denver plays the rest of the way now, depending on what the quarterback situation is. But fighting for the bye, at least right now. In the second most irrelevant game of the weekend, the Chargers beat the Jaguars 31-25.
And no one cared.
Yeah, the Jags, if they had won this game, they would have been 5-6. They would have been right there with everybody else in terms of the playoff looking picture. Dolphins get a loss on the road as the Jets beat them 38-20. Big point output there for the Jets. The Jets tied with everybody in for that wild card spot in the AFC. Again, better than we ever thought they were going to be this year.
Talk about a team that you don't know what to make of. It's the Jets.
In San Francisco, as the 49ers wore those god-awful jerseys, those black jerseys against the Cardinals. Cards had to pull one out late, a 19-13 win on the road against the 49ers. Cardinals 19-13 win, 9-2, second in the NFC.
I think the Cardinals were just not taking the 49ers that seriously. I'm not at all worried about this game. They'll be fine. Blaine Gabbert, though, look at him. 25 of 36, 318 yards and a touchdown. Maybe the next press conference he has, people will show up for it.
Maybe. Elsewhere in the NFC West, the Seahawks, they're resurgent. What a game that was against the Steelers. A lot of back and forth. Seahawks eventually pull away slightly for a 39-30 win. Ben Roethlisberger went out late in this game for the Steelers with a concussion. They said he's going to be fine and play, but he looked fairly concussed at the end of this one. But Seahawks, they're alive, 6-5 in the wild card spot.
This team not scared you to death? The Seahawks?
Now they've started putting up points. And the other thing with the Seahawks, Jimmy Graham finally looked integrated into the offense. Good. And then late in the game, he tears his patella tendon, and he's out for the year. So that's kind of a kick in the gut if you're the Seahawks to see like, oh, we finally got this guy working. He's in the offense. This is going to be nothing but great the rest of the way. And then they lose him in this game. But and not that he was a big factor before this, so they could still win without him. But you see the gears start to turn for the Seahawks a little bit, and I don't like it.
They just will not go away. And if they get in, I'm sorry, but maybe because there's no way they get home field advantage at this point. So I guess there's that. But if there's a team, if I'm in the NFC and I'm in the playoffs, a team that scares me to death is these guys. Because I talk about not knowing what you're going to get. Yeah.
They're 3 games behind the Cardinals, and they still play them one more time in the last game of the year. So in theory they could. But the Seahawks also go on the road to the Vikings this week, which is a tough game. But then they get Ravens, Browns, Rams before they get the Cardinals again.
That's what I'm saying, though. And even with the Vikings, I don't know that the Vikings have enough offense to beat that defense.
But even if Seattle loses this week in Minnesota, Ravens, Browns, Rams,
yeah,
and then a Cardinals team that may not have anything to play for,
you can't kill them. As hard as we've tried all season, they just will not go away.
Mm-hmm. I agree. But let's move on to the game of the weekend, the Sunday night game. Broncos, Patriots. Broncos playing with Brock Osweiler. You know, the Patriots, they look like the best team in a decade, and oh my God, you know, we're just going to blow them away.
Not everybody thought that, by the way.
Their backup quarterback in the snow, in the altitude, with the Patriots down 2 receivers, and they lose Rob Gronkowski in this game. The Broncos finally beat the Pats. They get their first loss of the season in overtime, 30-24. The defense for the Broncos really stepped up late in this game, I thought, and especially on that overtime drive. And they get the ball back. C.J. Anderson breaks one, and the Broncos win.
Well, first off, I have 2 things I'd like to say about this game. First, go back and listen to Basically a Football Show number 12, and you'll hear Greg say, I like the Broncos in this game. I think they're going to win. There was that. Secondly, how many times this year have I walked away from a football game and missed? I think it's been 4. You can make this one number 5. When the Patriots went up 21-7, just like I always do, I got mad. I said, screw this. I'm tired of these guys. I'm not going to watch. They're going to win. The next morning, I get, so what do you think about the Patriots losing last night? And I'm like, what? So, yeah, I missed another one, and I had to watch the highlights. I've learned my lesson, though. I'm not doing that anymore this year.
What do you think about Brock Osweiler?
I like it.
For the Broncos. I like it, too.
He's not Peyton Manning. Let's not even kid ourselves.
No.
But he can do the things that Peyton Manning can't do right now. He can throw a long ball. It may not hit anything, but you have to at least pay attention to the fact that he can do it. When Peyton's in there, defenses knew, like, he's not going to burn us long, so we don't even have to worry about it. It makes a big difference, I think.
I think Osweiler also works better in Kubiak's offense.
Absolutely.
Than Manning does. And you just kind of see things seem to flow a little bit better with him under center for the Broncos in that game. And even when he had to make some tough throws, he made some really nice throws in this game.
Well, yeah, and I mean, how many times did Demaryius Thomas drop a nice pass and a couple other guys will drop passes that were right there and they just dropped the ball? Now, some of that's due to the conditions. But, yeah, I think if you're the Broncos right now, with Peyton Manning, the way he'd played up to this point before he got hurt, and talking about that injury he has taken like 6 weeks to heal, I think you just got to make the decision to go, look, it's Osweiler's the rest of the way, which is crazy. I never thought in a million years I'd say, you need to start Brock Osweiler over Peyton Manning, but I think that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, I mean, Osweiler has the stage now to really prove himself and make it a incredibly tough decision.
Yeah.
Instead of, if he just comes in and does well enough and the Broncos win some games, then you can say, well, maybe we should still put Peyton in there when he comes back. But if he goes out and the Broncos start killing it, then you got to make the tough decision. So it's on him to make that decision rough, but it's a good first step with the win last night or on Sunday night. For the Patriots, though, it took a game in the snow, a game at altitude, a game without their top 2 receivers, a game where they lost. They were playing without a running back or 2, or a linebacker or 2, excuse me, and they lose Gronkowski late, and it had to go to overtime for them to finally lose a game this year. Despite the loss, I think the Pats are still the Super Bowl favorites, right?
In the AFC, they have to be. They weren't going to go undefeated anyway. I don't think the Panthers aren't going to go undefeated. It's probably good that they lost the game because now they don't have to worry about that anymore. Now they can just put that laser-sharp Patriots focus on winning another Super Bowl, which is bad news for the rest of us.
It really is bad news for everybody else. Let's move on to Monday night. The game that was nobody cared about, but at the end of the day, is hilarious. I think the football gods and the Cleveland Browns have come back into our lives for things like this. It was actually a pretty entertaining game, back and forth. Matt Schaub was the starting quarterback for the Ravens, threw a pick six like he's known to do. Josh McCown was the starter for the Browns, breaks his clavicle in this game. Austin Davis comes in, looks like he's going to be a hero for the Browns. And it goes down. The Browns are in line for a game-winning field goal.
Right.
The field goal gets blocked. The Ravens pick it up and return it as time expires. In Cleveland, the old Cleveland Browns beat the new ones in the most Brownsiest way possible, 33-27.
It was so perfect. And I've had a couple people to say to me, I can't believe their luck's that bad. Luck had nothing to do with blocking that kick. Let me tell you what caused that to happen. It was horrendous clock management by Austin Davis a couple plays before that.
Yeah.
53 seconds left. You've got the ball on 2 timeouts, and he wasted a good 30 seconds standing around. And then he goes and runs the ball and slides and stays inbounds. Stupidity is what got you to this point. And that's your Cleveland Browns in a nutshell right there. But my God, it was just so funny.
I was watching this in the newsroom I work in, and nobody in that room is a Cleveland Browns fan, but we all watched the last kick, and everyone just started laughing. Like, we kind of they blocked it. Oh no, they're returning it. Oh, it's going for a touchdown, of course. And the line was, only the Cleveland Browns could manage to fuck this up.
Yeah, and they did.
And they did.
I mean, even if you watch the return, for God's sakes, it's like for a second there you're going, well, at least they're going to stop him from running it back. And then all of a sudden it's like the Red Sea parts, and he runs through this giant hole and he's gone. And you're just like, I don't believe this. I don't even know what to say about this team anymore.
It's hilarious. Thank you, Cleveland.
I know.
Thank you for being a friend, Cleveland. Who did the city of Cleveland upset to make this happen to them like this?
I don't know.
Like, really, it's a long running, gag and meme and whatever. And maybe it's been overplayed, but the city of Cleveland really has a terrible run of things when it comes to actions like these.
I don't know what it is. I don't. But if you look back, I don't know. Something happened in 1964 that changed the course of history for that city. I don't know what it was, but wow.
Move on to college, and we'll start right away with the rankings. We'll get to the games in a second. The rankings just came out. The top of the rankings are the same as they were a week ago. Clemson is still your number one team in the country. They are undefeated, 12-0. Alabama got a win in the Iron Bowl, so they stay at 11-1. They only have one game left, the SEC championship game. Clemson has one game left as well, the ACC championship game against North Carolina. Oklahoma finishes its season 11-1. No conference championship game in the Big 12. So Oklahoma at number 3 in the country, I would almost have to assume is your first lock for the playoff based on how the rankings look right now.
I have to agree.
Number 4 is Iowa. They're 12-0. They finished the regular season undefeated. They will play in the Big Ten title game. Number 5, Michigan State, who did what they needed to do, beat up Penn State pretty bad. They finished 11-1 on the season.
That's a quarterfinal game coming up here.
Yeah, with 4 and 5, the winner of the Big Ten is in the playoff. Number 6 is Ohio State. They get a big win over Michigan to stay right there in the conversation should chaos occur. But the only way for Oklahoma to fall out would be for Clemson and Alabama to win. The Big Ten champs obviously in. And the only way Oklahoma falls out is if Stanford puts a big beat down, number 7 Stanford, like blows out number 20 USC in the Pac-12 title game, and maybe they say, oh, well, that's pretty damn impressive. They beat Notre Dame, who's number 8. Notre Dame only falls 2 spots to number 8. So maybe they say, oh, well, Stanford's really impressive, and maybe we should put them in over Oklahoma. But that's the only way Oklahoma falls out, and I don't even think that's likely.
No, I think Stanford, and I think it's ridiculous, to be honest, that Stanford, yes, they have 2 losses, but They have played a tough schedule. They beat a Notre Dame team that was ranked, what, at the time, 6?
Yeah.
And, I think that they've put together a good enough resume to be considered, but you're right. It's going to take a miracle and a change of heart in Oklahoma to get them in. That's the only way it's going to happen.
And again, look at the records. Stanford has 2 losses, yes, to number 14 Northwestern and number 16 Oregon.
Right, and you look at Oklahoma and their losses to number 74 Texas, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And yes, it is 2 losses, but at the end of the day, I got to think, I don't understand how they put Ohio State ahead of Stanford right now. I believe if Stanford wins, they'll probably go in front of them because they like the conference champions.
Right.
But if Stanford wins and either Clemson or Alabama, were to miraculously lose in their title games, I think Stanford is really the only shot at getting into that top 4.
Teams that make it interesting is you got North Carolina down there at 10. If they knock off Clemson,
right.
How far do they climb?
Right.
I think that we've got one bias left that we have to get rid of in the committee voting, and that is the 2-loss stigma. Sometimes a team can have 2 losses and still be better than a couple teams in front of it.
Especially with Stanford, their 2 losses are to 2 ranked teams.
Precisely.
2
and
top 20 ranked teams.
I don't get this love affair with Oklahoma either. Let's be honest about it. They haven't beaten anybody.
Now they do have a ranked team that they've beaten.
TCU?
Tennessee.
Or Tennessee. Okay.
They put Tennessee in at 25.
All right, but come on.
But, you look at that. Is Tennessee the 25th best team in the country? Or did somebody from the Big 12 in that committee or the SEC lobby to get Tennessee in there so Oklahoma had another ranked team that they beat this year?
Well, here's the thing. Do you think that if Alabama were sitting there with a 10-2 record, they would be at 7? No way. The SEC still riding that. And let's look at these rankings while we're at it here, too. The mighty SEC, one team in the top 10.
Yeah, and then you get Ole Miss at 13. Florida fell all the way to 18.
Yeah.
LSU's at 21, and Tennessee snuck back in.
They aren't the best conference in football anymore. I mean, they've got some good teams, but they're not. And I think the Pac-12 is.
Now that I saw Tennessee there at the bottom, and knowing that it's probably in there strictly for the benefit of Oklahoma, that bothers me. That really does kind of bother me.
Well, and Oklahoma having the benefit of being in the Big 12, you're right. They can't. Their record stays the same now. Yeah.
Well, but that hurt TCU last year.
They were in all season, though. You see, this is the thing, though. The committee fell in love with Oklahoma last week. I don't think they're going to break up with them this quickly.
Yeah, true.
But I think we've got Michigan State and Iowa. That's a quarterfinal game.
Yep.
And barring,
I think Alabama's going to beat Florida. Florida did not look good in that game against
Florida's got a good defense, but they just have no offense at all. None.
The only way anybody else gets in here, I think, is if North Carolina beats Clemson.
Yeah, and then you got North Carolina, who I think they might have an argument for saying, okay, we've done everything and beaten the number 1 team. Why not us?
Well, with North Carolina, you look at their schedule. The only team that was on their schedule that was ranked at the time before Baylor was Pitt, and they're not. They didn't even get any votes in the poll. The other thing is North Carolina played 2 FCS schools. So only one of those wins count.
Okay.
So yes, they're 11-1, but for the purposes of the committee, they're 10-1.
I see. Okay.
And yeah, I mean, if they do knock off Clemson, they'll beat the team that has been number 1 in just about every single, or they've been number 1 in every single ranking, haven't they?
Yes. Since the rankings came out, yep.
Every single playoff ranking they've put out, Clemson has been the number 1 team. So that would be a big thing to put on the resume, but does that jump you?
I don't think it jumps you 6 spots.
Does that even jump you over Ohio State?
Well, see, that's the thing.
Ohio State has a lot of pretty good wins this year if you look at who's ranked right now, too.
But there's been talk, too. Can Ohio State still sneak into this thing? I suppose they could, but they shouldn't. And I could see the scenario happening where you could say, okay, Ohio State deserves a shot, but come on. They didn't win the conference. That's it.
But again,
they're done. As far as I'm concerned, that's it. They're out. You don't get a shot. That's it. It's over.
These are all ifs and buts. I think one way or the other, our playoff is set.
Pretty much.
Clemson, Alabama, Oklahoma, Big Ten champ.
Yep.
I think because Oklahoma's not going to go up or down, I think we agree that they're going to be a lock.
And you know what, too? How much of this is a makeup call for last year with this Oklahoma thing, too, now that I think about it?
That's the other thing. You look at it, and maybe they say, okay, well, we screwed them this year, but now they have a legitimate champion, and they've won a lot of games. Yeah, they had one bad loss, but so did Ohio State last year to Virginia Tech, right?
Right. But Ohio State also went out and beat 3 pretty good teams right in a row to get into the conference championship game, and then won that like 59-0.
Well, they could say that they beat pretty good teams in Baylor, TCU, and Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, but yeah, I think there's a little bit of that going on here too. This is a bit of a makeup call from last year because I just don't know where Oklahoma came from.
And you know that, if there's a school that you're gonna pull one of those moves on, where you put them number 3 and pull them out, you're not going to do it to Oklahoma. You can do it to TCU,
right?
You're not going to do it to Oklahoma.
No.
In Oklahoma money, in Oklahoma TV, in Oklahoma attendance numbers.
No, you're right. You don't do it to a brand name. You do it to a secondary school. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and that's not the way this thing should work, but I think it's the way this thing kind of works. At some level, there is still conference bias, and the goal is to try to make some money.
Yeah.
So you can do it to TCU. You're not going to yank Oklahoma out of there.
But yeah, I don't see any way that Florida knocks off Alabama. I think North Carolina could maybe beat Clemson, but I don't think that's going to throw as much of a wrench in the gears as people think it's going to. Clemson may end up losing that game and still staying in the top 4 if that happens.
Oh, I don't know.
You never know.
If Clemson loses, they really made a point that they emphasize conference champions.
This is true.
And if they lose, and then you have Stanford, who says
you almost got to put Stanford in at that point, don't you?
Yeah. If Stanford wins, then I would have to say Stanford's in the best shot to move in.
Yeah.
Because Ohio State is not going to move in unless Alabama and Clemson both lose.
And even then, I don't think they should.
No, because even then, I would think, depending on how Iowa beats Michigan State, maybe say, well, maybe we'll throw Michigan State in there too.
Barring some really crazy stuff happening, I think it's pretty well set.
Yeah. Let's go over the games really quick. Iowa, they won on Friday, 28-20 over Nebraska. Iowa didn't look all that great in that game. Iowa's 12-0 again, but
I don't know what to make of them. We'll get a better idea when they play Michigan State.
Iowa's not going to beat Michigan State.
I don't know. We'll see.
I don't think so. In a monsoon on Friday night, in a freezing monsoon, TCU beat Baylor 28-21, a very low score for these two teams, especially considering it went into double overtime.
What did they stop like 7.5 minutes into the first quarter and call it a day, or what in that game?
They both scored on like the first 3 drives, and then with the rain and the slop, it was just punts and fumbles and interceptions and punts and fumbles. And somebody said they punted 22 combined times in that game, something you don't see.
Wow. I didn't even know that those two teams had a punter, let alone the
Right. Elsewhere, Navy, who had this great run, they fall out of the American Conference Championship game with a 52-31 win by Houston.
Yeah.
Houston moves back into the rankings at 19. Navy falls to 23. So Houston will go to the American Conference Championship to play Temple. Navy, they have the Army-Navy game left. They'll play that game next week, not this week, but in 2 weeks. Too bad for Navy. They were up there in talks of making one of the big bowls, but they'll play in the Armed Forces Bowl or whatever.
I think we kind of knew though that when they ran into Houston that the party was probably going to be over.
Yeah, but there was hope.
There was hope, but not a lot.
And your Toledo Rockets, Greg.
Yeah, I know.
They fall to Western Michigan.
I can't make a case for the playoff anymore. That's that.
No.
They're not the best team in the country anymore. Sorry.
You might have transitively beaten Alabama. You might have transitively beaten LSU, but
sorry, couldn't get past
Western Michigan and Northern Illinois.
Yeah, couldn't get past the Western Michigan Broncos. You can beat Alabama, but you can't beat Western Michigan. Come on.
Auburn was tight there for a bit. They had an amazing touchdown catch. That tip up in the air a couple times by the receiver to catch it to himself. But Alabama pulls away 29-13. Derrick Henry, 46 carries, 271 yards.
Got to be the Heisman Trophy winner at this point, right?
Either him or Christian McCaffrey at Stanford. They both had pretty good games.
I think it's Henry's to lose right now.
Oklahoma with a big win over Oklahoma State to clinch their playoff spot, most likely 58-23 over the Cowboys. Oklahoma, and I will give this to Oklahoma, even though we kind of bashed them all season. They knew they were going to a rivalry game against a ranked team, and if they won this game emphatically, they would be in the playoff for sure, and they did what they needed to do. So props to Oklahoma for doing exactly what you knew you needed to do. probably one of the more entertaining games of the college football slate. Notre Dame Stanford. What a game that was.
That was incredible. Both
teams back and forth all night long, just exchanging the lead with every increasing touchdown. Stanford, although, gets the ball late last, and they get a field goal at the buzzer to knock off the Fighting Irish 38-36. Even if Notre Dame had won this game, probably still not in the playoff based on how things shook out elsewhere. But a big win for Stanford.
Yeah, it puts them back into the we've got a shot territory again.
Yeah, they're right there.
And Notre Dame losing really kind of clears up some things, which is weird to say, but it made it a little easier.
But Notre Dame 10-2, still a very good season for the Irish, and they have a lot of guys coming back next year. They're going to be a very good team next year. They're going to be right in playoff contention again all year next year. Your game of the weekend, Greg.
Yeah.
the Ohio State Buckeyes. We thought it was going to be tight. Maybe Michigan has the chance to knock off Ohio State. Where was this Ohio State offense all season?
I don't know.
42-13 over the Wolverines of the Big House.
Of all the things I thought would happen in this game, winning 42-13 wasn't any of them.
And again, this was important for Ohio State to win as emphatically as they did, to maybe still hang around in the playoff conversation. But I think one way or the other, I think if Michigan State beats Iowa, not the other way around, Ohio State's got to be
I think they're
Rose Bowl representative, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I think it's a fine consolation prize to go to the Rose Bowl.
Or do you think the Rose Bowl would pick the other division winner? Like whoever loses the Big Ten title?
No. The Rose Bowl, no. The Rose Bowl's looking at it going, we can get Ohio State, we'll take them. Believe me. Because we'll pack that place. That's why they want us. We'll pack it.
If things stay the same and we get a potential Stanford-Ohio State Rose Bowl.
Ooh, that'll be a good one.
I think that'll be my favorite game of the bowl season. I don't even care about the playoff at that point. That'd be an awesome game.
It really would, yeah. If you can't make the playoff, that's probably about as good as it's going to get.
Michigan, although a 9-3 season for them, still very impressive in Jim Harbaugh's first year.
That is way better than I thought they would be this year. And I'm not just saying that as an Ohio State fan. I knew he would make them better, but I figured 7-5, 8-4 if everything really went their way, and they were right in the thick of it for the better part of the season. So props to them. Good job. And I am truly surprised that the Buckeyes beat them as badly as they did. I don't know what happened there because I don't know that Ohio State's that much better than Michigan, but wow. I'm not complaining, don't get me wrong, but it surprised me. I really didn't expect it to be that easy.
Florida State finishes its season with an emphatic win over their in-state rivals, 27-2 over Florida. Florida got a safety in the fourth quarter, and that's about it. It's
See
amazing.
what I mean?
Their defense was so good.
Yeah.
But God, no offense at all.
You got to be able – I don't care how good your defense is. If you can't get them off the field, you're not going to beat a good team. You're just not going to do it.
Yeah. If you can't score a point on offense.
I don't care if you're the 85 Bears. If you can't get off the field, you're going to lose. And that's what's happened to Florida here.
In the Pac-12 South title game for the division, Battle of L.A., UCLA, USC, and the Trojans beat the snot out of the Bruins. They pull away late for a 40-21 win for the Trojans over UCLA. Their first win in, I believe, the last three in 4 years.
And I hate to brag, but we were right about UCLA 2 years in a row now.
Yep.
What can you say?
Anyway, that's the end of college football. But there is one last bit of football I want to talk about before we go, Greg.
Okay.
Your Ottawa Red Blacks.
Oh, this close.
In the Grey Cup fall to the Edmonton Eskimos. I know you're devastated to lose to the Canadian Packers.
I got to say, watching that game, something that just cracked me up every time I heard it, they need to get a 2-and-out here. I just thought that was the funniest damn thing I'd ever heard in my life.
Well, yeah, it's only 3 downs.
Yeah.
26-20, the Eskimos knock off the Red Blacks.
Yeah, the Eskimos did a good job of killing the clock and not getting that 2-and-out for the Red Blacks and win the Grey Cup. So way to go, Edmonton Packers.
That's all I got this week. Any last things to say before we move on to the conference championship games next week, Greg?
Well, I'd say go Bucks, but we're done until probably the bowl season. So nice job beating Michigan. I was real happy about that and very pleasantly surprised. And go Packers. And go Hawkeyes. Go Hawkeyes. I'm going to say go Hawkeyes.
All right. I would have said the same about ASU, but 6-6. Wait till play in the Cactus Bowl or something.
At least you don't have to rely on that graduation rate, right?
No, they don't have to deal with the graduation rate. We're set. We're bowl eligible. Go Stanford. I'd want to say go SC, but I'd like to see Stanford win and then go North Carolina. Let's see some craziness.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Go Tar Heels. I want to see as much mayhem as we can get here. There's not a chance for a lot, but let's at least get a little bit.
Anyway, that's the football for this weekend. I'm Zach. That has been Greg. We'll talk to you next week. Enjoy the football, and we'll settle on a playoff field next week.
Travis Coons will attempt a 51-yard try. Game on the line. Final play of regulation. Kick on the way. No, it's blocked. The Ravens got it. Live ball. Will Hill picks it up. Running near sideline. He's got blockers. Browns 40, 30, 20, 10. One man to beat. Touchdown, Ravens. No flags on the play. It's a walk-off block and return. And how about that for a crazy twist to end it?